Hello everyone, and happy Victober to you. I hope that it is going well and that you are having a lovely time and have found some reading that you are truly savoring and enjoying. I wanted to talk today about books that feel like Wives and Daughters. Wives and Daughters is not only my favorite Victorian novel of all time, it is also just my favorite book. I find it to be so rewarding to spend time in. I love to have an annual reread of it, and I feel nowhere close to tired of it. Whenever I think about it, I'm like, yes, I could be back in that world. I would not mind being back in that world. And I do know from kind of other lovers of Victorian literature that are very enthusiastic about Wives and Daughters, we want more books that feel similar to that. So this is my attempt to give you some recommendations of books that are a bit in that category. None of them are going to surpass Wives and Daughters for me, but some of them I very much love. And kind of, if you just want more of that almost Jane Austen feel, not necessarily in style, but in kind of what happens to the plots, in just the kind of amount of stress that is in the plots, which is, a lot less than a sensation novel, but there's definitely some things, some plot lines you're invested in, and you get lost in kind of the worlds that they're in. I have some to recommend to you, and I will just tell you I have a rubric for the books that I picked. So there are 6 things that I thought, if a book contains these, it's going to be somewhat in the Wives and Daughters vein. The writing style might be different, but if it contains some of these things, I feel like on this list there could be some that you can enjoy. So the first quality I'm looking for is a deep character study with complex characters. So you aren't necessarily in the heads of the characters. Gaskell doesn't do that as often, but you do see the complexities of them, their idiosyncrasies, and also how a character can have these glaring personality flaws, but also these other things about them that you really just love and adore. That's something that I find to be a real a point about Wives and Daughters that I particularly love. And the next is its slice of life, meaning that the happenings are kind of everyday happenings. And I think the tagline of Wives and Daughters is an everyday story. So you really are kind of following the lives of these characters. Whereas some books, here's this really wild and crazy time in this character's life. And you're with them through that. Or books that are just more eventful. This is on the quieter end of things plot-wise, but still some things do happen. Next, it doesn't gloss over the hardships of life. So you have to, those of us that love Wives and Daughters know there are some very sad things that happen in it. And it is one of those books that every single time I come back to it, I'm hoping, wishing, praying that certain sad events just somehow magically will not happen this time that I am interacting with the story. And inevitably, they happen every time. But that way, I feel, I don't want those sad things to happen, but also sometimes very sad things happen in your own life. So it can feel a bit consoling to see that. And the next is that it shows characters in relationship with each other. When I read a book, often I like to find the characters that feel like friends. Sometimes I do love a good love to hate a character kind of vibe when I'm reading a book, but I love to see kind of the community amongst the characters. So whether it's a sibling relationship, whether it is a parent and child relationship, cousins, aunts, uncles, best friends, to see people that live in a community together, all of that kind of how it's just this big social network, I find is something that is really appealing in Wives and Daughters to me. The next is that it has a bit of an ache. I kind of love to feel all the feelings when I read a book. I want to be moved. And so simultaneously, those things in Wives and Daughters that make me very sad, and I'm always hoping they aren't going to happen, I find, wow, she really made me care about these characters that I'm this distressed about bad things happening to them. And then lastly, that it has some humor. I do love levity to be in books, and especially if you have a book that has those somewhat sad things that happen in them, you need some relief from that. And so humor can be a great relief. Not to deny that these sad things are sad, but to also know that simultaneously you can find something funny that has happened in your life while also having had sad things happen in your life. And the next 15 novels I'm going to tell you, hopefully there will be a few in there that will kind of scratch that itch when you're wanting something similar to Wives and Daughters. The first 3 are all by Charlotte Mary Yonge, and I am on a relentless campaign to get more people to read Charlotte Mary Yonge, particularly who I really try to do that with is Victorian literature lovers, because that's who I think will be most likely to enjoy her. So the first book by Charlotte Mary Yonge I want to recommend is The Three Brides, and it is the story of these 3 sons who are all newly married, and they come back home to their family estate with their new wives, and they want to be there and support their ailing mother who's in poor health. So there is talking about kind of characters in relationship with each other. We have these 3 very young new marriages with each person in each couple, has their own temperament and their own vices and virtues. And then also their relationships with their new mother-in-law, these daughters-in-law, and then also the sisters-in-law, their relationships with each other. I just find that really endlessly fascinating as a reader to kind of see all these interactions. And then as they get to know people in the larger community, and you're following them as they are kind of learning how to be adults and learning how to coexist in this household together and all of the complexities that can be there. And it is just an absolute delight. And then The Young Stepmother. This is the Charlotte Mary Yonge this year that completely swept me off my feet. It is another story of family life by her, and there is a blended family in this. So it starts off where our main character, Albinia, who has become my kind of all-time favorite Elizabeth Gaskell character, and Albinia, Elizabeth Gaskell character, Charlotte Mary Yonge character, she is very young and she marries a widower. And so immediately she gains a husband and she gains these stepchildren. And the house is very cold and lifeless and dreary. And she comes and brings all of this life and vivacity to the household. And in addition to that, then has some biological children of her own. So you're following this family through all of these changes. You follow them when they're recently grieving the loss of some family members in the very beginning, to when they start to heal after Albinia comes, and then as the family kind of ebbs and flows with the times and has this new kind of the newer, younger part of the family with the biological children that Albinia has. And I really love getting to see particularly the relationships that Albinia has with everyone, with her stepchildren, with her biological children, with her husband. Her brothers feature in it, and so to see kind of these siblings as adults who become friends, and there is so much to love about The Young Stepmother. And then lastly, The Heir of Redclyffe. This book, I think, has such just a special place in my heart. I well up with affection whenever I think about it. And there is just something about it that has truly captivated me. And there is a family and then kind of extensions. There's one family, the Edmonstons, and then there is a family that lives nearby and extensions of that family. So, 2 of the cousins who are they are cousins to each other, and then they know this family. And there is a kind of, the cousins have a tarnished family legacy, and so one of them in particular has really taken it upon himself to really fix this tarnished family legacy and try to mend things. And the portrayal of his character is so moving, and the relationships that the family has with one another. And then I love you get to see kind of the passing of time and the passing of seasons and the evolution of these characters through that. So with Charlotte Mary Yonge, you can go in knowing kind of the plot is personal growth. There are some big events that happen and sometimes tragic events, but they are rather quiet for a good portion of them. But because of how much I get to know the characters, I don't really feel bored. I just enjoy getting to spend time with these characters. Next is Deerbrooke by Harriet Martineau. And I first heard about this book from Yonge at the channel Beyond the Pages. Yonge was one of the first Victober co-hosts. And the way that she was talking about Deerbrooke, everything she had to say about Deerbrooke, I thought, this is a book that I want to try. And it was just the most dreamy experience to read it. And what was really fun is a few years back, I was hosting a Victorian book club in a 19th century mansion. And that was the book that was chosen. It was selected for the November discussion. So I read it over Victober. And I just fell completely in love with these two sisters, Hester and Margaret. And they are recently orphaned, but they're young adults. So not an orphan in the kind of child sense. But their parents have both passed away. And so they are being taken in by these relatives. And they move into this small, very insular town. And it is about kind of how there are ripple effects from them moving into this town. There are some romances. The romances, actually, I will say, they're not really what I love about the book. There's a lot of other things that I love about this book. And it just has these really delicious scenes of people being in community with one another. There are some really frustrating plot lines, misunderstandings, which is such a typical Victorian thing. And if somebody would just have a conversation, then it could all be cleared up. So you should go in knowing that if that's going to be a frustrating element to you. And the next one is Wyndham's Daughter by Annie Swan. So this one I have as a bit of a caveat. It feels a bit forgettable, but it was one that as I was reading it, it was a very pleasant reading experience. And it's very interesting because Annie Swan was a socialist, and this really it's very apparent as you're reading it. There's some social justice plot lines. So I think she and Elizabeth Gaskell, had they ever met, would have really gotten along. And I honestly can't tell you much more about this book, but I wanted to include Annie Swan because I think she could have some readers out there who could really love her. And as I've been, preparing videos and doing my ranking of Victorian novels, Annie Swan came up and I thought, you know what, I'd like to read something else by her. I haven't given up on, I'm not done with Annie Swan. I want to read more by her. So I will come back to Annie Swan at some point. Probably read a new one. We'll just have to wait and see. Next is Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. So I do think that a strength of Elizabeth Gaskell is that her writing is very approachable. I would say George Eliot isn't always known for being approachable. However, Daniel Deronda is definitely one of her more approachable books. And to me, when I think of the way that I feel when I'm reading Wives and Daughters, it is not that different to the way that I feel when I'm reading Daniel Deronda. I have such deep love and affection for so many of the characters in this book. And I even think that it would be interesting to really think about and compare the character of Gwendolyn from Daniel Deronda to the character of Cynthia from Wives and Daughters. They do have some real similarities there. I also think that it's really interesting to see the different kind of social strata that people are in, and to also see the families that you get to know in this. Mira is one of my favorite characters in the book as well. There are just some characters that are like a magnet to me. I'm very drawn to them. I want to know more about them. I want to know what's going to happen to them. And I just felt so eager to kind of find out what was going to happen to these characters that felt so very flesh and blood to me. The next book on the list is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. This is another one with a caveat. Shirley is a book that I feel at some point I'm going to fall in love with this book. I'm determined because right now, the only book that I love by Charlotte Bronte is Jane Eyre. I don't think Villette and I are meant to be, but there was enough in Shirley when I read it that I thought, oh, I think I could love this if there were, a few things that were different. And so I still have a copy of it, and at some point I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to really take my time, because there were certain things about it, the female friendship in it. What I love in Wives and Daughters is this relationship between Cynthia and Molly. And so then seeing the female friendship between Caroline and Shirley, that was an element that really I loved getting to see the dynamic there and kind of how everything unfolds. I wanted to love it. So I do think that people who love Wives and Daughters could love Shirley. It's not as approachable as Wives and Daughters. Also, it's historical fiction. And so there's a lot of details to kind of get straight there. You might want to become more familiar with the time period, look up everything, and then it could help you going in. And the next one is, or the next two Elizabeth Gaskell, and these are both novellas. So for those of you that have completed all the Gaskell novels, take heart, because one, her books are so conducive to rereads, but also you have some great shorter fiction out there. And I think that both the Moorland, Cottage, and Cousin Phillis could be really appreciated by you. Both of these are a little bit on the sad end of things. There's some really intense sibling rivalry happening in the Moorland Cottage. It has some of her most exquisite writing, particularly describing the natural world. It's unbelievably beautiful. It was just astoundingly beautiful to me. And then secondly, Cousin Phillis, just this story of very rural life and family relationships, and this one woman's kind of quest for autonomy, living in a time when she feels she's not going to gain autonomy. And it has just kind of haunted me since I read it, and in all the best ways. So definitely ones that I am looking forward to returning to at some point myself. The next one is The Perpetual Curate by Margaret Oliphant. So this year, the group read is Hester. Hester is one that I struggled with, and I'm hoping it just wasn't the right time for me to read Hester when I tried it before, and that Victober 2025, this 10th Victober, will be just the right time. I know that in The Perpetual Curate is part of the Carlingford Chronicles. Miss Marchbanks is the book from the Carlingford Chronicles that seems to be kind of the crowd favorite. It was not really a hit with me. The Perpetual Curate, I completely fell in love with. And there is definitely a good amount of humor in there. And the highlight to me in The Perpetual Curate are these three elderly aunts who really want to hold all the puppet strings to this Perpetual Curate, tell him exactly how he should run his life, who he should love, how he should spend his money, how he should have aspirations in his career. And they were absolutely hysterical to me. The scene where you first meet them, it's a work of art. It is a work of art. Okay, next is Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore. Now, I will say, it's unrelenting in its pacing. It is a bit on the slow side of things. However, it being historical fiction, there is sort of this romantic quality to it, and Wives and Daughters is actually technically historical fiction. There is just something special about it. I would say the character of Lorna might not be as three-dimensional as she could be, but I have very fond memories of Lorna Doone, and I think that maybe Lorna Doone could have some readers out there that would fall in love with it. I love the very woodland feel of it. There's just something really enchanting about it. And the next one on the list is a Trollope. I have several Trollope. Actually, the rest of the list are Trollope. And it is Can You Forgive Her? So I have a very complicated relationship with the Palliser series. Can You Forgive Her is the opening book in the Palliser series, and I struggled with it. I tried it 2 times, and then the third time, finally, I had to get, I think, as much as 150 pages in, and then I could not stop reading. So I will say it's definitely there is a plot line that is on the darker end of things for, as compared to Wives and Daughters, but we know if you have read Mary Barton or Sylvia's Lovers, Gaskell can do dark, and in some of her gothic tales. All that being said, I really love the feeling of a story where you get to check in with these different plot lines and different characters and see what they're all up to. And at the heart of the novel is this woman who wants to break off her engagement. And this was just not the done thing, and all of the pushback that she receives from that. And there's just some very memorable characters. And once I got invested, I could not stop reading it. I just found it so compelling. And it's way up there for me as far as Victorian books go. And then I just want to recommend the Barsetshire series. So I know everybody has their own kind of ways that they would rank it, but I'd say if we're going for similar to Wives and Daughters, first there's the Warden and Barchester Towers. Those don't feel that similar to me, but once you get to Dr. Thorne onwards, there are some Wives and Daughters elements in Dr. Thorne, Framley Parsonage, The Small House at Allington, and The Last Chronicle at Barset. These are beautiful, beautiful books with so many characters that you are cheering on, or some that you're wishing them long gone. You want to put them on the Gilbert and Sullivan. You want to put them on the list of people who would never be missed, or who never would be missed. And so you just get very swept away by this world and all of the happenings in it. There's a lot of talk about kind of church politics and the clergy and people who are employed by the church. It's just a big hub of this story. So if that kind of sounds interesting to you, you definitely want to try this series. And then the next Trollope that I feel is a bit similar to Wives and Daughters is The Vicar of Bullhampton. And the quirky characters in this abound. You're not going to be lacking in that. And there are a few plot lines running in this one, and it's just become one of my favorite Trollope. It's just precisely my kind of Trollope. And I found I just had such a good time being lost in this book, in this novel. And there is one plot line that's kind of darker, and for some reason when Trollope does that, I just eat it right up. I love it so much. And the last Trollope, and I think the sweetest, is The Belton Estate. So this does have the romance in this. It's very insta-love. If that's going to be a deal breaker for you, I don't think you will like The Belton Estate. But if you say, you know what, I can just suspend disbelief, I can try to get on board with this insta-love that happens, I think it could be a book you would truly, truly enjoy. Alrighty, I hope that you enjoyed this video discussing books that feel like Wives and Daughters, other Victorian literature. Please comment down below if you have other suggestions, and I would love it if it was one I hadn't read yet so I could have more ahead of me. But all of these are ones I would be delighted to reread as well. So I love a good reread and becoming even better, more intimately acquainted with a book. So I hope that you are having a wonderful day, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.